Rico.
Oh, no shit.
How are you?
I'm Annette.
Hi, Annette. My pleasure to meet you.
Why would
It's
there be
beautiful.
around us?
Because you guys are the real deal, man. You guys are the real deal.
Terry, hey, wait up, buddy. It's me, Greg Parker. I want to help you.
There was an interesting moment on Flashpoint, because I know we absorbed that stuff. And I woke up haunted. Because my character was a negotiator, but it didn't work. That one time it didn't work. I woke up thinking if I had just acted better, I might have saved her. If I just was more convincing to her, I could have changed fate. I could have changed the story so she wouldn't have to die. And that's how this sort of came about. Because we're actors. We feel a vicarious sense of responsibility. But I can't imagine what kind of pressure that police officer is under over a 20-year career. How do you capture that on television? Yet those TV shows continue to inspire generations of first responders.
I've always wanted to be a firefighter. Emergency was my favorite show.
So you started watching that show,
I loved it.
Like a lot of other kids.
The fire station was down over the hill from my house, and when the fire horn went, didn't matter if it was 2 in the morning or 5 in the morning, when I got up and I watched the fire trucks drive out of the station and down the street, and I waited until I knew there wasn't any more going before I went back to bed. So that was at a really young age too, 6 years old. I remember doing this stuff. So I knew the two things that I really wanted to do in my life.
Play music and be a firefighter.
Yeah.
With me, I can get away from my job because of my music. I just get on stage, and it's a different world for me up there. And if I'm in front of, the 200 or however many are here tonight, or 20,000 next month, it just doesn't make any difference to me. It's the same rush and the same high, and I that's what I get from it, and it takes me away from all the crap that goes on in my life and that has gone on in my life, and it just puts me in a sort of a different world.
Yeah, 'cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone.
What do you have to witness to come up with a song like that, with lyrics like that?
Too much. Just too much.
You haven't been diagnosed with PTSD?
I have not been diagnosed. I probably should have been at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had my problems. I've had my issues. I've had my anxiety. I had my first anxiety attack at work one night, and I've never told really anybody about it. But I couldn't swallow for some reason, and we weren't going on a call. We were just going on a standby request. And when we got halfway there, and I was feeling like I couldn't catch my breath, which was really odd. And I wasn't that old, but I was thinking there's something wrong. And I just remember trying to get a piece of gum in my mouth, so I wanted to calm down. And when I was doing that, I could feel my heart racing, and it was really racing. And I dealt with it till I got to the next station, which was 20 minutes away. And I jumped in the back of the truck, and I did a 12 lead on myself. I checked my sugars, and I sat there, and I didn't know what was happening. Besides, I was scared to death. I felt this overwhelming feeling of doom, that I was just done. And I've never really told anybody that that's happened to me.
You watch movies?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, when I have time.
Okay, when you see like a cop movie, what do you think? What's the first thing you think of?
That Flashpoint, I don't watch that. That's hokey. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I actually never wanted to be a police officer.
Because you saw it, because you come from a family.
And it's not, my dad would never come home and tell stories or anything like that. I think it was the exact opposite. He would drive to work. We would never see him in a uniform. He worked for Peel, came home, never talked about it. But I think it's because at the time, women, it wasn't seen that, you know, you're in high school and you go to your counselor and they're like, oh, what about being a police officer?
How long you been on the job?
I'm in my 11th year. I went on my first ride-along, hooked.
Really?
Hooked. Yeah, it went with the OPP, and it was a great night. There was a dead body, 2 weeks. We had a high-speed pursuit, and I was just like, the adrenaline, where do I sign up?
That's why I'm grateful, though, that we do represent a real organization. In other words, we can't cheat too much because we're really, there is an FBI, there is a behavior analysis unit. You know, you did your show, those people really exist, those SWAT people exist.
And they watch you, don't they?
Of course they do.
They do. There was a pressure. There was definitely a daily pressure to, in a good way, I want to honor these people. And Joe felt the same way. I think we all felt the same way. I don't want to do something silly or something egomaniacal or be worried about, worried about how does my hair look. I just want to honor the people that have to do this in the real world.
The Action Jackson aspect of, you know, of playing an FBI agent, you know, went away. You know, I'm thinking about, oh, this is gonna be, I'm a fan of Die Hard. You know, I can watch it all day long. I'm like John McClane, you know. I'm gonna blow up stuff, you know. Yep. And you go down and you get this sobering tour.
I remember when I was a cop, I had to jack some guys up at 72nd Street, and I don't remember what for. And I remember that a bunch of people kind of gathered around and were angry at the fact that I was stopping these guys. And the people that were angry had just come out of watching The Untouchables. And their kind of belief was that I should have comported myself as Elliot Ness did in The Untouchables, that I should have been sort of flawless and you know, and specific in everything that I did, and not, you know, putting the 5 guys that someone else said had robbed them up on the wall and sorting it out as I went along. And so I think that most police TV and film does the disservice of creating this expectation that a cop is either, you know, severely flawed or should be able to do everything kind of perfectly. And the shows that get it right get to the humanity of the fact that you know, that we're just kind of petty humans with all the same bullshit going on as anyone else, and you know, generally we try to do the best job we can, you know, and we try to be decent human beings and create decent outcomes for other human beings. I don't worry so much about the people who become cops because they watch these shows. I worry about the people who watch these shows and think that that's what it is to be a police officer.
You almost go into this profession with a vision of invincibility, right? Like, I can do this job. I have to do this job. I'm a professional. I'm going to do, you know, give it my best. But when you take off that uniform, you're no longer that cop or firefighter or paramedic. You're just Vince Saboya.
The Tema Conter Memorial Trust is an organization that was founded back in 2000 to honor a homicide victim I attended to when I worked as a paramedic in Toronto. Her name was Tema Conter. Tema was a young, vibrant 25-year-old who moved to Toronto from Halifax to pursue her passion in fashion design. And on January the 27th, 1988, I had the unfortunate opportunity of attending to her homicide. And as a result of that, I personally suffered with PTSD.
The one thing that was really different about this particular call is that when I first saw Tema, I thought it was my fiance. Their physical resemblance was so uncanny. And I recall, you know, in the apartment, completing our paperwork and driving back to the ambulance hall. And it wasn't that far. It was maybe a 5-minute ride, if that. And things seemed to be normal. Get back to the ambulance hall, and I remember just talking to a couple of the guys coming on to work, because it was a shift change, and we talked about the call a bit, and I took off my uniform and I put on my civvies and got into my car, and I started driving home. And I only lived about a 20-minute drive back then, from the station. About halfway home, I started crying uncontrollably. And I couldn't understand why. I just did not understand why this particular call had impacted me to the degree it had. I went back to work the next day. I don't recall what I did the next day. It was almost as if I was on autopilot, and I just did the things that needed to be done. But I knew the call was still bothering me because even a week or two after the incident, I was having the nightmares. And I would be sitting at the dinner table and I would have flashbacks to the crime scene. And I had never experienced this before.
We have paramedic friends also. My husband's a police officer. If we talk to somebody outside the field and just somehow get on topic of a call, they'd be like, ooh, how can you do that? Oh my God, I can't do that. Well, what do you mean they were dead? What do you mean you're trying to bring them back to life? They don't understand that whole concept.
What do you mean you were trying to bring them back to life?
Well, because, you show up to a call, and if somebody's vital signs absent, so they're dead, we work on them to bring them back to life. So people say, oh, you put a dead person in the back of your ambulance? Well, you're not dead unless you're cold and dead. Yeah. So we try to revive people, and a lot of outsiders have a hard time dealing with that. Or, the tragedies at a car accident, a child dying, or, a mother or father dying and they've left small children. They can't grasp the total feeling of what it's like to be there and be in that spot.
Everybody in this room, fire, EMS, police, we all go out the door knowing that stuff may happen and we might not come walking back into this building. So you start to cherish some of those bonds and stuff as you get older in life.
Around 7:30 on June 4th, while responding to a call of an armed man in the north end of the city of Moncton, 3 of Kodiak RCMP's officers were shot and killed. 2 other officers were also injured, but their life is not threatened at this time.
When you're a dispatcher, you feel responsible. We often describe the police officers as our police officers. They're ours. They're kind of like our kids, We're that voice. We're the ones that it's supposed to take care of them. We're their lifeline. So when this happened, I know it's not my fault, but it was just, I thought everyone was going to be mad at me. It took weeks, even months to get rid of that. It's not my fault, but it's been hard.
A large part of the community knows what you went through, what a lot of people went through.
I think everyone knows what happened, but not everyone knows the rest of it. Because last summer, let's say I would be at the beach. Well, anyone can say, well, why is Lisa at the beach? Isn't she supposed to be sad? But what people don't understand is when Lisa got home or on the drive back from the beach, Lisa's crying. So, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's society or if it's the way we're brought up, it's kind of when you're crying, it's a bad thing. You should hide it. It makes other people feel uncomfortable when you cry. So.
But crying isn't usually a sign of post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, I cry all the time. I don't suffer from PTSD. Crying is a good form of expression.
It's a good thing, yeah. I think the crying comes after you've realized. It's kind of like a way to deal with it. Once you break through that barrier, because at first you kind of don't know what's going on when you first suffer from PTSD.
What is going on before the tears happen?
Kind of numb. You're kind of numb. I've done horseback riding since I'm a little girl. The last summer she invited me over to her barn and we went horseback riding and we had a blast. But then it became this like therapy. Like I would go, it's out in the country and you could really disconnect.
I was a dispatcher like her, 911 operator, fire dispatcher, call taker for the police, the RCMP. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're going back June?
So I'm going back June 14th.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do the gradual return to work. Yeah, and it's gotten a lot better. I don't have nightmares anymore. So, but my doctor's gonna be helping me kind of figuring out like how much, like I am going back, but how many hours to do. And so I feel really good about it.
The way that we would deal with things at my age and the way that people deal with things at younger ages, to me, are different. But again, I was never put in the situation that she has. 3 dead policemen, that's bad. Like my husband, he told her that she has 5 years of service with 25 years experience. I was always lucky that I didn't have those situations that she had. I know she's a good dispatcher.
She loves it?
Yep. Oh yeah, she loves her job, for sure.
My first 3 weeks on the job, I was involved in a pursuit up north, and an innocent person was killed. I sat there and went, what do I do with everything that I'm holding on to here? I just witnessed some guy get killed right in front of me. And we've got this bad guy in custody, and we take him out. What's the first thing we do? Let's go get some cases of beer, and we'll debrief this. So what am I learning? I'm learning to use alcohol to cope with stressful situations. What does that lead to?
Sometimes it's just bad, and you have to talk through all the bad stuff. You try not to go out to a restaurant to do it because people tend to move away from you when you're talking at the table, and you look around and, why am I the only person left here at the keg? It's only 9 o'clock. Just people didn't want to hear how, you know, the prime rib reminded you of something that you'd seen.
You know, you said that term, suck it up. Like, my goodness, when I started policing, that's all you heard.
Yep.
Suck it up.
Get going. This happens.
Whether you were hurt, whether, you know, it was a bad call, whatever it is, suck it up.
Yeah. Well, does this happen every day? Because I don't know if I want to stay if this is going to happen every day.
Hey, Julian, can you describe what Daddy does?
He fights fires. And he saves lives.
Thank you. What's moving is that I've had the opportunity to understand a little bit more why we make that emotional connection, I think, and what the best way to move forward in life is with that baggage that you carry. You can't, and I know I've heard it a million times, don't make an emotional connection, but you can't get away from that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As long as you don't bottle it up like I did and keep it inside you and not talk about it.
As a wife, you never think of it. You're just excited. You're excited to find someone and say, oh yeah, he's a fireman. Like, how exciting is that? And this is what he does. But you don't really know the side effects or the consequences of his job and how it's going to affect the family unit.
What used to happen before the kids came, he would tell you what happened. Post-kids is just like sort of leaving it to your imagination and stuff. Are you okay with that?
Yes and no. Sometimes I like to be a little bit more nosy and hear what he goes through or what's happened. But on the other hand, sometimes there's things that maybe I don't want to know, that he sort of keeps me out of harm's way.
Yeah.
But
Do you understand that's what he's trying to do?
yes, and there's times, you know, depending on what's happening and what call he's been on, where he'll come home and it's a quick, are you okay? Do you want to chat? Yes, no. Sometimes we'll talk about it. I hope that by him sharing with me, and if I'm there able to support him, that that he's never broken, really, in a sense. That hopefully I can help keep the pieces together and not have them fall so far down that you can't get him out.
But do you have support?
Yes and no, in a sense. I mean, I have him as support. I have, you know, a couple good girlfriends that I can talk and share with.
But no firefighter friends, no firefighter wives.
No. I'm sort of embarrassed to say that
I think it's good.
because they're so tight at work.
Yeah,
Sometimes
but we're there together for so many hours together, doing
Yeah.
very, very different things, like in terms of being normal, right? We're not doing stuff that most people do together.
Mhm.
I think it's good that you don't have any firefighter spouse friends. What would you have in common with them? Other than having a spouse
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm serious.
What would they have in common?
Yeah.
They're married to firefighters.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Think about what that means.
Well,
You're really sharing.
they're sharing a common experience. Because what they're sharing is a disconnection to your world. And how frustrating that can be for the spouse. Because they don't know what's going on.
Because I don't tell you, it doesn't mean I'm not dealing with it, though. So for me to come home and tell you the gory details, and really, it's almost worse for me to tell you, because then your own imagination takes over and develops this picture of what has happened in your head, and it could potentially be worse than what I've experienced. So I don't see the purpose of coming home and sharing all that information. If I'm dealing with it and it's fine, that's what we do.
But when the hurt is written on your face and you come home.
Okay.
Clearly your kids seem unfazed by the...
he's getting to the point where
Mom and Dad talk like this all the time? Yeah.
He's starting to chirp me
They're
now.
pretty
too.
awesome.
Yeah. I think you get into this racket thinking that you're going to be the guy that can turn it on and turn it off. And I'm done. I punch the card at the end of the day, I leave, and I'm done. But you can't. You carry it.
That's a hard one. Even though it's not real and it's make-believe, you're gonna go to bed and you're gonna wake up with that character.
I patrol my house, and I stopped doing it
Oh, before, I know what you mean.
with a 9mm.
Oh, well, I did it with a fake gun. But
No.
Around your house?
Around my, well, when I started on the show, which was just a year before
Real
Joe, he was walking around with a real gun. Were you,
I just have my home, you know.
but were you practicing for your craft,
No,
or were you?
No, you take a little bit of it at home.
You gotta take a bit of it. You gotta take a bit of it. You had a fake gun.
Because a window is closed doesn't mean it's locked.
Is this something that you currently feel and go through, or was it a phase that you went through?
I'm much better. But it's, and I haven't been through it. I mean, like, if you're gonna be honest, you be honest. You know, you gotta ask my wife.
There was an episode in our show where in one speech, in one sentence that Matthew Gubler did as Dr. Reed was that I still practice and tell people about because it was almost educational. Because in 1 minute he said, "How did this happen?" And in one speech he says, "Well, the girl parked her car with the valet, and so the valet took the car, hit the button, went to navigation. The navigation said home.
Has her house
now he knows
on
where
it.
she lives. Okay, she has her garage door opener right here. He took the garage door opener. He had a device that copies her garage code. Now he's got that." Now, most people who have a house with the garage attached do not lock the door between the house and the garage because they know the garage door is closed. So this guy now knows where she lives, knows how to get in the garage, and now can get in the house. And he says this all in one sentence. And I was like, so I'm thinking, I have navigation in my car. My thing is, I have 2 daughters.
It totally makes you paranoid. We're artists, you know, we're doing our best to represent what real people go through, you know, but if you're trying to get close, you receive it and you talk to people and you get a feeling of how they feel. You have not been in what they've been through, but you feel it in a way, and it'll sit on you.
In my case, for example, when I attended Tema's homicide, for years I felt guilty and I felt responsible for her death, simply because I made the decision on scene that we were not going to resuscitate. Right? Intellectually, it was the right decision. Psychologically, emotionally, it was the wrong decision. Right? That's what affected me. And it took me a long time and a lot of counseling to come to terms with the guilt that we have to carry after we attend traumatic calls and that we're not able to fix the problem. Because as first responders, we see ourselves as the fixers. We'll go in and we'll do whatever we can to get the job done. But what we can't, we blame ourselves for that. Right? And that's the problem.
But that's an impossible burden.
It is. It's an unwinnable burden.
What stops these services, Vinny, you think?
I think one of the main reasons is, I call it the John Wayne syndrome. When we look at John Wayne and the character he portrayed, he was a man's man. We see it changing today. It's a very gradual change. But when you have leaders in organizations that still use phrases like, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen, what does that tell you about the leadership? So sometimes I truly do believe it's the system and the leaders within the system. On the flip side, it's your colleagues on the front line. Those individuals who want to maintain that bravado. I got an email from a paramedic a couple of weeks ago who was ridiculed for speaking up about his PTSD, and he was an embarrassment to the uniform, and how can you come forward and ask for help? You shouldn't be in this line of work. So when you have your own colleagues saying that, so one thing that I've been speaking about for the past year and a half is basically needing a culture change, not only from the top down, but also from the bottom up.
It was a coworker of mine who was trained in mental health. When he looked at me and said, "I see something is wrong, I'm here for you," I don't know, it penetrated into my soul or into my head and was like, maybe you can fix this.
So how cathartic or therapeutic was this process for you?
Oh, it was fantastic. When I saw that she'd posted this, I'd come back from stress leave not that long before that. I took a whole year off on stress leave and was diagnosed then. And I came back to work saying that I was going to talk to people about this because there's a lot of shame involved. It's one of those things where you're just not tough enough. And that was basically what I was told by somebody that, was somebody that I looked up to. Well, maybe you're just not tough enough. And I thought, after 11 years, I'm not tough enough. Like, come on. I'm tough enough. I choose not to be anymore.
So Rob, when you saw your portrait the first time, were you surprised by it?
Well, I was surprised how big my head was, man. No. I, with the exception of one other gentleman on here, I was the most senior person on here, and throughout my EMS career, I was always a black cloud. Wherever there was a very, very bad call, it seems like I was the guy responding to it. Mm-hmm. And in a very
You're still that guy.
I'm still that guy. And a very short span, I had, just as an example, like an 8-year-old who just died from playing hide and go seek. I had a 9-year-old drowning. I delivered a stillborn. I walked in on an act of murder, and that was all within a span of maybe 5 months. And it was just there was more calls, and I just found that I was it knocked me for a loop. I was just so emotionally exhausted, and I didn't want to at first, but I thought. You need to lead by example. And as a senior guy, I thought, everyone thinks that you're infallible.
Has it made you more empathetic, though?
Empathetic? Oh, hey.
Toward those patients?
100%, yeah. I've been in 7 years, and I can notice the progression of empathy towards
Mental health.
all these mental health calls that we go to. We go to a lot.
You've got people who can't self-care, and I used to get angry. Like, why is this happening? But now my ability to connect and know that my intervention for them is stabilizing them for the time I have them, I feel empowered.
It's an injury. And if you don't want to treat the injury, then what happens, it weakens your overall system and allows for other malaises, other sicknesses to come about, and especially when it comes down to the mental side of things with PTSD, the worst thing that can come in is depression. Mine, I think, was an accumulation of various events. Events where I wasn't directly affected, but I arrived on the scene immediately thereafter. Events where my life was in jeopardy. And events where the sheer massive scale was something that my body was unable to process. And I talk about my body as opposed to necessarily my mind, was unable to process. One of my constables ended up dying in a single car accident, a rollover, and he was ejected out of the car. There was another one where one of my constables was shot in the face, and I was there at the hospital to hold his hand and to ensure his initial security, because we didn't know what we were dealing with at the time. Have events like that. To the more particular events of Haiti, where 1,100 people died as a result of storms, tropical storms and hurricanes, and dealing with the police response for that. I was the site commander on a scene whereby 93 children died. And seeing every single one of the bodies being brought out, carrying a couple of bodies myself out. So those events took their toll. And then in 2010, when I went back to Haiti immediately after the earthquake, spent about 40 hours in the pit, as I call it, of my old headquarters, where I had worked for a year, searching for the bodies of many individuals with whom I had worked.
One of the first things I said to him was, or the last things I said to him was, just come back in one piece and make sure you're whole. And I was very clear to qualify that when I said that, I didn't just mean whole in one piece, but whole within. And just knowing that the potential was always going to be there, that he could see just about anything out there.
You know, going through everything I went through, seeing, and I describe it as being something out of The Walking Dead, the TV show, where you have all these people who are all affected immensely, emotionally, physically, as a result of what they've gone through down there. It was very, very difficult because I knew right then and there that I was no longer the same person that I'd left just 2.5 weeks prior to that. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to keep my promise of avoiding not coming back whole. I've never taken a day off because of this. And I know that the therapist said, listen, I can write you, I know you're off for 2 months, 3 months. To sit at home and to stew about it and wonder, what's going on, I don't think was the best way to do it. So for me, it was a matter that I had to go on with my work and continue. My issue is the interruptions that occur in my daily life, the flashbacks that bring me back. You see it on TV where an individual, he stops, he thinks, and then suddenly you see this totally different scene. And it's very much like that, but it's an emotional response. It's a physiological response that comes about. My issue is not just during the day, but it's especially at night. I don't sleep. I sleep very poorly. I'm able to fall asleep very, very quickly. I'm never able to stay asleep. And the nightmares that come haunting are such that I'll be thrashing around my bed. My wife will be grabbing me and calming me down. She has to be careful. She has to have some form of self-defense so as to be able to ensure that she doesn't get hit by my flailing legs or by my arms, and that she's able to calm me down enough so I'm able to go back to sleep. This whole trip through the experiences with PTSD is one of unfragility. I want to be able to grow from this as best I can. And if it means that I can help other people to be able to deal with it, then I will. But it's hard slugging.
I always said it's not a job. I leave home Saturday night, I'm sad because I'm leaving my wife and my kids and the guests that are home because I gotta come to work. You know, I go in my car, I say, damn, I wish I could stay home. But as soon as I put my feet in the station here, I see those guys, a high five come in there, and it brings us, not that I forget my family, sometimes I do, but I forget the rest. When I'm here, and we have fun. But I believe in the job. Me, I say job, but it's not a job, it's a passion.
The toughness is when we lose this mask because we are human. 2 weeks ago with the older woman.
Yeah.
She's an older woman. She live alone, 96 years old. It's a simple call. She's just need help.
Just fall down.
But that call is gonna be tough for me.
And she took his hand. And you know, sometimes when they are in a hard situation, when they grab your hand and they hold it like if it's like the biggest thing in the world, and they don't leave you. So sometimes you're not the one who's worked hard on the victim, but you're just there holding. But this exchange, no word, nothing, but just hand on hand, it makes something. It gets you somewhere, and I think on the long run, on the whole career, doing that, like, I don't know how many times, but there's might be a built-up of something, and I don't know where it go at the end.
Is your father still around? No. When did he pass?
83.
Wow, how old was he?
He was 47.
Young guy.
Yeah.
Police officer to the end?
Yeah. That's what killed him.
What do you mean?
That's what killed him.
The job or an accident on the job?
No. The job in his gun.
Oh, he did it?
Yeah.
He did it to himself?
Yeah. It was like a shock, you know. It's like the biggest clown of the family, always the party guy, and suddenly, boom, gone. Yeah, my dad decided one day that I guess he had enough. I was going to be a police officer. Obviously, I wanted to be like my dad. So I had done my courses. I was going to John Abbott in police tech, and suddenly my brother says, hey, I'm going for the fire academy. Okay, I'll go with you. So I took a U-turn and became a fireman. I knew I wanted to go in that area, you know, emergency and all that. I used to watch SWAT on TV back in the years with my dad, and I would get up and watch that program. And, oh my God, I would see those guys flip through windows. I want to do that.
She wanted to be a cop. My father wasn't.
I was going there first.
Yeah.
But I went. No way.
No. Yeah, I want to be a paramedic. Yeah. Runs in the family, I guess.
When she told me that she wanted to be, and even John, because he did one night with me at the station, and when he came back, he goes, oh my God, it's so cool. I said, hey, you've seen the good stuff.
The fun stuff.
I'll tell you now the bad stuff, and that's what I told her 2 weeks ago. Right away, I went to the bad stuff, because the fun stuff is easy. I messed her up pretty good at the beginning. You know, we didn't have the kids, and I was coming back here, and I was young and stupid, you know. So everything that I would see on the job, I would come back and tell her the stories. But without thinking of how she would react. And she wasn't on the call, so she would take my story, and maybe in her head, it would become like this. You know, it's like listening to radio or reading a book. You can put the image you want. And at one point, it affected her. I had to stop.
I mean, we see it when my dad comes home and, like, I know, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna talk to him today. I'll just, like...
But obviously, they get the side effect of my job. And that's, you know, when I hear them say that,
Qui veulent faire la même chose.
Big wimp.
Do you see him as a hero?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't just keep it inside. He knows how to let it out.
get. Okay, get yourself in there. Right, you in? Okay.
So that's my husband with the cat coming in. This was a little routine that they did every day. You can see by the light that it's still daylight.
Yeah.
And you can see that all the curtains are closed.
Right.
And this was part of the hypervigilance. I mean, the minute he came home, he locks everything up, does a perimeter check. If I came home, if we ran out of milk, I wasn't able to go and get milk, because once you're home and you're safe and he's done his check,
Yeah, you
you
can't
don't
leave.
leave anymore. And so it does affect families. It's not just the the person with PTSD that has some kind of, or is suffering the symptoms alone. It does affect the family, because you start to live with these things and you don't necessarily, or other people don't understand why you don't accept invitations anymore. We didn't go out. We never went out. Like I said, I knew we were in a bad place, but I didn't realize we were about to step over a cliff. And Bailey stayed at his feet the whole entire time. You know, I mean, that was the first sign I had that something was wrong. And when I came in the door, the dog didn't come to greet me. For every day of his 12 years, he's come to greet me at the door. That day, he was downstairs or at my husband's feet. And he never left until all the other first responders came.
But Richard, or Bucky, sort of suffered with the emotional consequences of his job for 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years, at least 12 years.
It was maybe only the last 2 years that he, I think, himself was coming to terms. Well, and himself coming to terms with something's wrong. I can't fix this myself. I know I'm different. I think there needs to be an acknowledgement that people do react to situations differently, and I think all of the emergency services, there needs to be that kind of external message that, you know, there is no one reaction that's okay or not okay, that you react the way you react, and everybody needs to be okay with the way they're handling something. And if you need to talk about it more, then that's okay. If you don't want to talk about it, maybe that's okay. But I think sometimes there's this idea that there's one way to react to a problem, and that's not reacting or something.
Do you think if the police services had just acknowledged him, he would have been okay?
I can tell you for a fact that had they not treated him the way that they did, he'd still be here right now. I can't tell you that he never would have taken the path he did, but I know that had they offered help when he was begging for help, it wouldn't have happened on July 7th, is the best way I can put it.
He was supposed to go back to work in 2 days.
And he just couldn't.
A layperson might look at what happened to your husband and your dad with such detachment and saying, well, why didn't he just quit?
Yeah, okay. This is...
exactly. You've gotten that question before, right?
Yeah, and you know what? I knew we were in a bad place, and I say we because we're a couple, we're a partnership, but I didn't know it was as bad as it was. Had I known he was right at the edge of the cliff, I would have told him to walk away. But you have to understand that these people are in many cases, the breadwinners, okay? Which is a huge thing. Believe it or not, you know.
It's a big decision to walk
away from any
job.
It's a huge decision. It's also a calling for a lot of them. A lot of them, a cop is not just what you do, it's who you are. Firefighters, paramedics, it's who you are. You're that person that rushes in and helps people. That's a huge part of their identity, you know, that they help people, that caring and that compassion. You're giving up all of that. And the thing that bugs me the most is this is fixable. We can help these people. They shouldn't have to quit.
I know for myself, being diagnosed with PTSD in January of 2009, I would go home to have 2 or 3 beers. And those 2 or 3 beers would probably take the edge off from the day. And it also would allow me not to have to deal emotionally with the garbage call that I just went to.
Right. I'm only doing this because I don't want people to go down the path that I went down and almost losing my kids and my wife and all these things that happened because of my, and that's the other piece, is me owning it, my self-destructive behavior. Me destroying things around me because that was the only way that I knew how to cope and deal with it. What a lot of times you'll hear with new recruits, you'll hear them fire off their rounds very quickly.
They like the sound of
They
that.
like the sound. It's like, oh, I've seen it, and they emulate from what they've seen on TV. And stuff. But when you actually, exactly, I don't know where they got that from, right? But when you actually look at it and you go, okay, but you had 10 seconds. So if you're presented with the stimulus, which is the target facing you, and you can increase that space, you're no longer reacting, but you're responding. You're responding with what you've been trained to do. And it's the same instance when I teach crisis intervention. If I have a person that's armed with a knife in this room, and I come to the door and they have the knife, what am I doing? First of all, I need to recognize what I'm bringing to that call. What's my self-awareness telling me? Am I scared? Am I sweating? Am I upset because this guy? And then I need to have a conversation with that person in the room and de-escalate it.
Hi, Alan.
Stay away from us!
I'm Greg. Hi, Liam. Hi, Alice. How are you guys?
So it's not about rushing in and saving the day. It's about standing at the door going, oh, knife, okay, guy's upset, he's in crisis, pay attention to the meaning, not the words. He's scared about something, okay. I have my gun out because you have your knife out, sir. I'm here to help you. And I'm gonna stay at this door and I'm gonna have this conversation and we're gonna get you to a safe place.
Got a lot of healing to do.
Monstrous.
Not just personally, but we as a city, we as a country, as a continent, as a world, a lot of healing to do.
And when you look at it in that aspect, it seems daunting.
Yeah.
But if I look at it in the aspect, and again, by no means am I this Zen guy that just walks around and goes, wow, look at the flowers. I have my moments, I have my struggles. But if I can create change within my world, maybe offer you some assistance or some other people assistance, you're gonna take that and it moves on and on to the point where we actually are helping the world.
Hey, guys. I know your mom loves you more than anything. I'll bet you she's taught you to never talk to strangers.
You're not a stranger. You're a policeman.
Yeah, that's right. I am.
What was the happiest call you've ever been on?
I've been on many calls.
Give me one, or two, or three, or four.
You know, sort of not trying to be morbid, but I mean, some of my best calls were, and my most calls that I was most happy were when I was able to comfort families. I was able to, you know, they would send me a letter a week later saying that my mom, who was dying, and had me walking in her room and having her smile and holding her and you know, trying to get on her stretcher and making her laugh those last few hours of her life was huge for me. Huge.
So your fondest memories of a 20-year career weren't, oh, I delivered a baby or I saved the cat from the thing. It was consoling other people.
Yep. I never even thought of it before, till right now. Weird. Yeah. It's being with people that just need somebody in there to take away their stress. Yeah, that's what I did the best.
What drives you? Why are you involved with this whole thing? Why are you here?
I don't know if you knew that my brother was a police officer for 30 years in Toronto.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I love my brother. And I remember the first day he came in uniform. It was just like, holy shit. It was like an impressive moment. And, you know, you fast forward to the end of the career and he was tired and he was just like burned out and didn't want to deal with it anymore. And I know what he was doing at the time. He was dealing with child abuse. That was that was the last thing he did before he retired. It was just like, and I know that's what wanted him to get out. But 5 years after he retired, coincidentally, while I'm still doing Flashpoint, he has a heart attack.
Oh, no.
And it was that heart attack literally. He woke up. My brother is alive and well and living in Italy right now, smelling the flowers, drinking the wine, enjoying life like he's never enjoyed it before. But by God, he was like stuck behind that armor of...
If I may just break things, I want to introduce a role, my favorite role model and a hero to me, my older brother. He was the one guy who said that I would make a lousy police officer because I wear my heart on my sleeve, so.
I've been gone for 12 years, but I will always be a police officer. And I, wish you a great retirement and the whole bit, and you'll know what I mean. And, but thank you.
Thank you.
So.
'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference in the first on everything. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone, it keeps going on. When those sirens are gone.
What kind of a response do you get from the ordinary public about us as
Because they know that I'm an actor playing a police officer on television?
Yes, and
we romanticize it. If I had a buck for every time a kid came up to me and said, "You make me want to be a cop," I say, "No, you want to be an actor."